Yes, I'm Andy Farmer and I'm Executive Strategy Director at ORM, and my talk today is about the opportunities and challenges for digital marketing techniques such as personalisation and automation in the B2B space in financial services. But before I start, I'm aware that some of you may not know who ORM are, so just a little quick 1-minute intro. We're a digital strategy agency based in central London, and we help our clients through digital change in a way that drives commercial benefit for them through delivering better experiences for their customers. Now, that includes creating roadmaps and digital plans and strategies for them, but also implementing them across any own digital channel that they have. So that might be a website, could be mobile, an app, or experiential. And we like to think we're quite successful at what we do. We've just won a UK Digital Experience Award for Best Business Transformation for Great Western Railways. Now, as you can see on the slide there, we currently organise ourselves into two core market areas, so travel, media and consumer, and some of the brands that we work with there, and also financial services, where we tend to focus on B2B brands, so asset and wealth managers, the corporate destinations of banks and professional services firms. Now, what follows in the next few minutes is a combination of themes and learnings that we've gained over the last couple of years working with these brands. So what is it I'm going to cover today? Well, first of all, what's the business case for doing digital one-to-one marketing in the first place? Secondly, where could it be heading further in the future? Thirdly, what are the sort of current on-the-curve initiatives that we're implementing or looking at with our clients at the moment? And then fourthly, if we're going to do these things, what do FS marketers need to be aware of to achieve them? And then finally, some closing thoughts. So first of all, the business case. Why do digital one-to-one marketing in the first place at all? Because after all, isn't a trusted relationship with an intermediary or an institutional consultant or an ultra-high net worth individual based upon trust delivered from lots of face-to-face interaction and meetings? Well, yes, but that's changing and perhaps not quite as much as we all think. So the need for face-to-face is very much contextual. Certainly ultra-high net worths, once they've started a trusted relationship with a wealth manager, are very happy to use other digital channels to communicate. And also what's perceived to be the gold standard from territory and country is very different in terms of face-to-face meetings. So you can see over on the right there in Asia Pacific there's an expectation of 10 meetings a year, whereas that's much less in Europe and the Americas. And this is where digital has a role to play in terms of, sort of plugging that communications gap. And certainly if you look at the intermediary audience, it's very much sort of taking up that challenge at the moment. Sort of most consultants or intermediaries are very much wired in. They're using smartphones. They're very much using social media and especially LinkedIn to grow their networks and to gain more clients. Almost 50% of them have gained clients in that way. And the interesting thing is the more sophisticated you are, the more likely you are to use social media. So discretionary fund managers, the sort of top tier of intermediaries, are more likely to use social media. The thing that they're not really doing at the moment is they're not using digital and social to drive thought leadership. So you can see at the bottom there, only 2% are using LinkedIn to drive thought leadership of their own. They very much rely on asset and wealth management brands to deliver this for them, to give them those crucial insights that make them look good in meetings, let them close deals, and also let them do portfolio research. And historically, the way in which they've got this knowledge fix has been through events, but that's starting to change. And a lot of the reason for this is because this sort of audience is becoming increasingly time poor. So they can't now always afford to go to a seminar because it may not be what they want or what they were looking for. They can't spend a whole day out of the office. So what we're now finding is that more and more of them are going and using webinars and video to actually get their thought leadership, because after all, it's easier to leave the page than it is the event. The thing that, because of their lack of time, that they're less into is advertising. So these are some comments from the recent Be Different survey from last month. They'll read technical information, they'll read an article, they'll read content. If it's brand advertising, they're likely to turn it over or ignore it. The thing that they still rely on is email. But even email is seen as a necessary evil. It's used because it's non-interruptive. They can look at it when they need to. But if it's not from a brand that they trust, they won't look at it again unless it's timely, it's relevant and piques the interest. Interestingly, I had 2 or 3 emails this morning after the budget yesterday, but not perhaps as many as I thought. So what are the key themes for these audiences? Well, like any consumer, they're time scarce, there's more channels to choose from, there's more advertising, there's more noise. And of course, they've now got a bigger client base to deal with, more people looking for financial advice with all the deregulation that's happened. So what do they need? They need more relevance, they need more convenience, they need to be able to get the information at a time of their choosing, perhaps out of hours or on the train on the way home. And above all, they crave authenticity. So given all that background, where's it heading? Where can digital support? Well, for me, a bit like Annabelle, I don't think it's either or. It's not digital or bust. Actually, the role for digital in B2B financial services is smart support for face-to-face relationships. It's actually the ability to provide better service for less effort. So what can it do? It can help increase efficiency. It can help reduce operational costs and allow your relationship managers to cover more ground. It can reduce time and that grunt work needed to deliver those business-clinching insights. And it can also take the strain out of recognising hot prospects and new opportunities. And hopefully, if it does that effectively, what will it do? Well, it should increase profitability for your business. It should allow you to increase the assets under management per client. And also, it should allow you to deliver a larger client base. Now, a way in which this is happening at the moment and a way in which digital can help in the future is through machine learning and artificial intelligence. Computers now are able to process structured and unstructured data at a great speed. Now, structured data is the stuff that we all know about, transactions, registrations, etc., etc. But unstructured data is the behaviours behind searches we might make on Google or our conversations on social media. And based upon this, computers can now make value-based recommendations. Now, one of the organisations that's doing this quite well at the moment, at the forefront, is IBM Watson, which some of you may be aware of. It started in 2009, and in 2011 it became rather famous for winning the US quiz show Jeopardy. And it beat its 2 best ever contestants by being plugged into Wikipedia for half an hour. Now, Watson's a pretty incredible thing. It can actually process 60 miles high of A4 paper in 1 second. So that's more books or insights that you or I can ever read in an entire lifetime. So it's being used across a range of industries at the moment, and financial services is one of them, where it's branded as Watson for Wealth. And there's 2 areas which it's being focused on. One is to grow client networks by looking at the behaviours across social media of a known wealth manager client base. And the other is to take the strain out of that grunt work when you're doing research, which I talked about earlier. Now, here's an example. The wealth manager's prepping for his 9 o'clock meeting with his client, and he's wondering why one of the holdings in the portfolio is underperforming. So within 1 page, he can look around the holdings, click on it, and look at all the data related to it, all the social media posts that have been translated into English from around the world, and all the comments. And he can find out from this that the holding's been underperforming because there's been a poor harvest, and also there's been a change in management. So he takes the snip from that data, puts it in his Dropbox, and he can save that for his conversation with his client. Then he clicks on the new management team to find out a little bit more about them, and he can see that the COO is the 10th richest man in Mexico, which is nice for him, but also he can find out from his social profile that he's an extrovert and he's been part of many company turnarounds. So based upon that information, he can go arm back to his client for his 9 o'clock meeting and make some recommendations about whether to keep the holding or not. Now, all of this might seem a bit Minority Report, but actually it is happening in some areas of the world as we speak. So there's banks over in Australia and in Singapore that are using this to support their wealth managers' advice. However, the reality is that using things like Watson is quite time-consuming to implement and also quite expensive. It literally has to learn your business. So in terms of what's on the curve currently, brands are looking at much more practical things. So here you can see perhaps the usual suspects, some of which Annabelle mentioned earlier on. Customer experience, so improving the UX, the content, the service design of your operations in the business. Personalisation, which I'll come on to in a moment. Optimising for mobile as we move on to mobile and tablet devices. Marketing automation. Social media marketing, especially through LinkedIn, and then finally turning some of those dreaded PDF fact sheets into videos. And that sort of ties in with the types of initiatives we're looking at with our clients as well. So in terms of sort of the professional audiences, there's sort of 4 or 5 key themes. In terms of sort of the outward marketing approach, preference centres and Dropbox tools are becoming increasingly popular. So this is the idea of being able to follow investment or follow a fund or perhaps a regional asset class based upon your interests and have alerts sent to your inbox via SMS, email or push messaging. And aligned to that sort of Dropbox tools. So if you find an interesting piece of information, you can snip it, put it in your personal area, or perhaps your wealth manager can do that for you. And then personalisation techniques based upon browsing. So this is undeclared behaviour. Rather than you saying, hey, I'm Paul Smith and I'm interested in X, Y and Z and going into a login area, it's recognising what you're doing as you're browsing an app or a website and serving up content based upon those browsing behaviours. And then audience-specific portals, so dedicated destinations for top wealth clients, for institutional clients, for intermediaries, where they can log in, just look at information around their holdings, and then have a one-to-one conversation online with a relationship manager. But it's not just external marketing activity that these brands are looking at. If you're going to deliver these things, you need to improve efficiency as well, as we talked about earlier on. So multi-channel campaign automation is a big trend, and to deliver this audience segmentation by persona as well. Content hubs, so the idea of being able to write once and publish many times across different media types. And also automating the compliance process as well. I mean, many of you know the fun and games of getting pieces of content through compliance. If there's some way of being able to automate that and assigning a disclaimer or T&C to a piece of content in advance, that should speed up the compliance process. And then, as Annabelle mentioned earlier, that focus on upping your KPI frameworks, changing the way you report on success. So some examples of that. Henderson, not one of our clients, but we like some of the work that they've done. One of the earliest and perhaps still the best preference centres out there. You can click to follow on any fund in its portfolio. You can follow a fund manager. You can follow an asset class. And you can go into a nice little pop-up area where you can decide when you want to receive those communications and how often. If you go back to the website, you can then go into a My Account area where all that insight is stored in one place. And following work that we did with Blackrock a couple of years ago, they've also initiated one of these as well, a slightly different riff on the theme by insights, themes, and also fund literature update alerts. And what Blackrock does quite well is it promises this bespoke content. It's all about a value exchange. So it's upselling what you're going to get if you sign up. So here you can see you'll get your own personal email put into your inbox at 8:40 every morning, very convenient. You get your own personal blog and you can build your own portfolios and use those for client meetings using Morningstar tools. And if you want to give away some more of your personal data, then you can view some of those lovely webinars that I was talking about earlier on. However, the promise isn't necessarily delivered in what you get when you go back into the site. So here I am logging in as an intermediary onto the home page and spot the difference. There's nothing different apart from my name. And Blackrock's not alone here. I've just pulled it out as one example. Many other brands are exactly the same. And that's a pity because personalisation isn't really being fully exploited, certainly in the B2B space. There's a good survey from eConsultancy last year outlining, as you can see on the bar on the left, 33% of brands in FS say that they're doing multi-channel personalisation at the moment using digital data and offline data. That may or may not be the case, but certainly from our experience in B2B, most of the brands that we've talked to or dealt with aren't doing that. And that's a pity, because in other industries in which we work, personalisation really is the poster boy for consumer success. So we've been undertaking personalisation programmes with some of our travel brands. A good one, not one of ours, I hasten to add, EasyJet, who started personalisation back in 2012. And they used the Sitecore Experience Manager platform and did some really, really simple things. So there's the home page. They matched your location to your nearest airport. So if you're near Gatwick, it will default to Gatwick. And then, based upon the things that you browse and the flights that you research, when you go back to the home page, it gives you the cheapest flights for those destinations. And by doing that, they were serving up to 2.5 million concurrent sessions at one time. So in their January sale in 2013, they sold a ticket using this technique every 5 seconds, filled 2 planes every minute. Okay? This helped to transform their business. You can see there their share price on the left. At the end of the first year of doing this, their profitability was up by 21.5%. Their share price over 2 years increased by 200%. They're on record as saying that digital strategy was a big part of that. Now, OK, that's pretty impressive. Not everyone's going to do that, and we're not all selling planes here. We're not selling plane tickets. However, on average, the increase in conversion rate you can expect by a well-thought-out personalisation programme is 19%. Now, we're not in the business of selling plane tickets, so how on earth can this work in financial services where it's all about personal relationships? Well, here's an example. Meet Mark Simmons. He's an independent financial advisor, and he has £100 million worth of assets under management. That's quite impressive, but for the asset manager, let's call them Asset Manager International for sake of argument now, he's actually a Tier 2 prospect. He's not in their top 500 that would have a regular conversation with a relationship manager, so he's not known to them. They may have his email address, possibly they may send him things. However, he has some fund selection capability. He can select portfolios for his clients, and with Brexit looming, potentially, he's looking for new investment opportunities, and he's looking for opportunities around UK equities. So what does Mark do? Well, he attends Asset Manager International's roadshow event, and there he meets their relationship manager. They have a great chat. They swap business cards. He talks about his fears for Brexit and his interests. The relationship manager does his job well. He goes home. He goes back to the office. He inputs the business card details and the chat into Salesforce, and then he sends a personal one-to-one email to Mark. Hey Mark, great to meet you today. Here's a lovely article on Brexit and some things that you might be interested in. Mark thinks that's interesting, so he clicks on the email and he reads the article. Great. So far, so obvious. That's what we'd expect, isn't it? Well, yes, but normally what happens after this is that Mark goes into a black hole and every interaction that he makes on the website is unknown to the brand. But not in this case. In this case, his record has been matched to the digital experience platform, so he has a unique ID that's tracked with every single interaction that he takes. Every email that's sent and every site visit is tracked so he can build up a picture of his journey and his experience over a period of time. And here's what it looks like. So here at the top, you can see that timeline, and that timeline is when he actually visited Asset Manager's websites. You can see it's 10 or 11 times over that period, and you can see what he looked at. In the middle, you can see his persona, and this is from the data that he gave the relationship manager, but also from his browsing behaviour, he's being logged as an independent financial advisor. And you can see from the things that he's looked at over there that he's most likely to be in the market to purchase a UK Select fund or put a UK Income fund on his portfolio. And that's based upon the top pages that he's viewed over on the left. On the right, you've got his details. You've got his previous visits. You can see the city he's logging in from, Birmingham, and you can see the all-important engagement score. Now, why is the engagement score important? The engagement score is important because this is what builds up the picture of Mark's propensity to buy. So we can say that when he gets to a certain point, he's worth having a face-to-face relationship with because he's a hot prospect. And how do you build up an engagement score? Well, literally, you look at micro-conversions on the website. So if he's looking at a Fund Explorer page, he might get 25 points. If he looks at About Us, 25 points. If he looks at a specific fund, he gets 50 points. If he downloads a fact sheet or a KID, a key information document, he gets 75. And if he signs up for something like a webinar or asks for a callback, then he gets 100. So what happens? Mark looks at the site over a period of time and he comes back and browses the homepage. He gets personalised information about the UK Select Fund and articles around it. And after a period of 4 or 5 weeks, he reaches the magical 625 point score. And that triggers a message to the relationship manager in Salesforce saying, this guy's hot to trot, you should give him a call. Now, the great thing is because we've got all his browsing behaviour on record, the relationship manager knows what he's interested in, knows what his fears might be, and he can have a really qualified conversation with Mark. So Mark becomes the hot prospect, and they have a face-to-face meeting. Apologies, that's our creative director getting excited. So that sounds all fantastic and practical ways in which digital can help that one-to-one relationship. But what are the implications for FS marketers if you're going to do this? Well, it does require some planning. It's not a magic bullet. And if we think about this, it's all about a value exchange, as I alluded to earlier. You are basically, as an individual, giving up your personal data in the hope of promise that you're going to get more bespoke content and insights, with the implication that if you do that, you're more inclined to do business with the brand. So in order to get this right, you've got to think about a few things. First of all, what contact details do we want to collect in return for giving that information? At what point does it become intrusive and it's not worth the effort for the potential client to give away their data? Secondly, user preferences. If we're going to create preference centres, what's the selections that you can make to follow funds, insights, information? You may want to follow by everything, but it can be really, really difficult for the brand to implement if their products and services aren't organised that way. Third, we talked about user behaviour and assigning user behaviour to the individual record. Well, as Annabelle said, with digital you can collect absolutely anything, but rubbish in, rubbish out. So what bits of user behaviour do we want to assign to that record that's going to be insightful for the brand? And then which relationship manager are we going to send any communication to? Now, if we're talking about a wider range of people, they have to be contacted. It can't just sit in an inbox somewhere or sit in a database. So we have to assign relationships to potential prospects so that they're contacted quickly if they show interest. And then content personalisation. If it's a value exchange of great content for giving away your data, if you've got no content or nothing to say, what's the point? So you've got to actually up your content game and potentially create more content. And then finally, visualising the record. It has to be easy to query, easy to understand, so you can make business decisions. The second area to think about is how you approach analytics. Good stat I dug out last year. 75% of CEOs want marketers to become 100% ROI focused. Yes, absolutely. And in that world, saying last month we achieved 50,000 website visits, 500 email alerts and 200 Facebook likes doesn't cut it. What the CFO or the CEO wants to know is last month we had 50,000 visits to the website that were anonymous, and these turned into 2,000 qualified visitors, and we expect to get 100 prospects out of that, which should lead to 50 meetings. And if we get 50 meetings, we'll have £200 million worth of assets under management. Those are figures with which they can potentially work. So to do that, we've talked about some of the analysis tools with the example I showed you, but we need to combine those with other things. And at the agency, we like to think about sort of 5 themes: what, where, who, when, and why. So the what and the where you can normally do with your standard tools, so your Google Analytics or your Web Trends or your Adobe. That will give you the high level performance measures, how many visits, how many page views, how many downloads, etc. And it will also tell you which media and touch points are most effective for you, whether PPC is working, advertising is working, etc. What it won't tell you is who, the users and the personas being affected. And this is where you need the engagement platform like AEM or Sitecore to deliver that sort of persona engagement scoring, Salesforce to give you the propensity to know whether a prospect's going to turn into a client, and A/B tools like Optimizing. Now, we're not saying that you have to use those tools specifically, they're just examples. And then you've got to think about when in the customer journey you can optimize performance. So then you need to be able to follow through the whole journey and see where there's issues. So for that you need session replay tools, so things like Session Cam, Hotjar, ClickTail, so you can see where dropout might be occurring. It may be in a form field, it may be in a call to action. And then finally, it's not just about undeclared behaviour, it's about declared behaviour as well. So why is this happening? So for that you need survey tools like Qualaroo or Forsee. So we like to think about it around sort of 3 layers: core tools for commercial performance, engagement and CRM, and then the optimization layer for improving performance once a property is live, so session replay and audience feedback, and then this visualization layer to sort of tie it all together so you can query. Final thing to think about, there's many others, but these are just 3 themes. Content and its value. We're talking about customer journeys and customer engagement here, and it's about sort of providing sort of micro moments of delight and nudging people through a relationship. So to do that in the value exchange, the content's got to be timely, it's got to be interesting. So that means, as FS marketers, you need deep subject matter expertise, but also an understanding of how to merchandise that content and to get the next best action. So in this case, as an example, one of our clients, Viva Investors, you can see over on the right, obviously I can't give you numbers, they had a big spike, sort of 50% increase in visits to their insights section for intermediaries earlier in the year, and this was driven by 2 or 3 articles, one of which was this Lessons from History article, which compared what happened since 2007 financial crash to what happened after the Wall Street crash in 1929. And it sort of compared potential investment ideas on the back of that. Now, this was great because it was marketed on the site, but also seeded on CityWire and via LinkedIn. It gained a high degree of traction, but most interestingly, the figure on the right there, sorry, on the left, from where you're looking, 42% of non-bouncers actually looked at related content, mostly that multi-strategy fund at the top. And during that month, 15% of people who looked at insights downloaded a fund fact sheet. So that was a really important way of nudging people through that relationship, turning from prospects into potential clients. Now, if you're going to use that type of technique, you really need to understand your audience journeys in detail. And we alluded earlier on about customer journey planning, and I think the guy said that they'd worked with Nunwood, a good agency on customer journeys. We'd like to look at that ourselves as well, but in great detail, and then looking at the role and purpose of digital through that customer journey. So here's an example again for Aviva Investors. And what we did was we interviewed stakeholders in the business, but also real clients and customers as well, and looked at what stage they wanted digital media and what type of content or functionality they wanted. And here you can see it was initial research and fund long listing, where they wanted more depth and insight around a particular fund or investment strategy. At the execution stage, where they needed to have good arguments and reassurances for their clients before they made the investment decision. And then in the fund monitoring stage, once you've actually made your decision to purchase, reassurance that your investment is on track, and that's where these insights become really, really important. So, closing thoughts. What's the opportunity? Well, we've talked about customer experience and how important it is. And yes, I do firmly believe that brand marketing is incredibly important, advertising is incredibly important, but it's also now about creating these micro moments of delight to push people through their relationship with you. However, marketers have a challenge because with the rise of customer experience, there's a whole new wave of disciplines that are now taking over. And interestingly enough, a survey from last year, only 43% of CMOs said they owned the customer experience within their organisation. So that sort of represents a challenge where you have directors of customer experience and perhaps digital coming into the mix. So I still think there's a real opportunity. We've seen for the guys here, they're leading the charge on the digital challenge, and I think that's the role for CMOs in the future. There's actually, for me, never been a better time to be an FS marketer because your audiences are open to use digital channels, and because of that, they're giving you loads and loads of lovely data and insight that you can use to create really compelling ideas and business cases that your CEO and CFO are going to love. And also, we're starting to see some of the limitations in digital centres of excellence. They've been absolutely fantastic over the last 5 years to get digital learning up to a certain level, get standards of behaviour right, get you to market quicker. However, there are limitations in terms of specific markets. One size doesn't fit all, and also in terms of specific audiences where you need real deep-seated understanding of your audience. And that's what marketers can provide. They provide the glue because they understand the customer and the business, and they hopefully understand a lot of other things as well, including what's in the CFO's mind. So I see the future of perhaps being the chief digital marketing officer that's the glue tying all this business transformation together from a digital point of view. And we're seeing this with our own clients at the moment, either officially or unofficially. The CMO is leading the charge.